Welcome back to Wickedly Judged, the podcast where we expose wrongful convictions and advocate for justice reform. I'm your host, Rebecca, and today we're continuing the powerful story of Senrick Wilkerson, a man whose case highlights the devastating consequences of a broken justice system. If you're just joining us, I highly recommend going back and listening to the first half of this interview, where Senrick shared the shocking details of how he was wrongfully convicted through prosecutorial misconduct, constitutional violations, and fabricated charges. In that episode, we left off as Senrick described the moment he was taken on the chain bus to prison, a pivotal moment in his fight for justice. Today, we'll pick up right where we left off and dive deeper into Senrick's experiences, including his time in prison, the challenges he faced, and his ongoing efforts to clear his name. This isn't just a story about one man. It's a story about a flawed system that prioritizes convictions over truth. And it's a call to action for all of us to demand reform. Lastly, don't forget to visit our website at wickedlyjudged.com, where you can leave comments about this episode, submit a case for review, or purchase merchandise. Every purchase or submission helps us continue our fight for justice reform. Now, let's get back to Senrick's story. When we left off, you had just been taken on the chain bus to prison, a moment that I imagine was both terrifying and surreal. Can you take us back to that moment, please?
A few weeks later, they called me out and put me on the chain bus. Two buses. Now, you've never been to prison, so I don't know if you know what that means. Maybe you do because of your fiance, right?
Right.
So it was two, they called them the Bluebird, 2 chain buses going to prison. We went to Huntsville, went to the Holiday Unit. They made me a travel card. It's got my name on it and everything, okay? We get to the Holiday Unit. We have to take off the county jail clothes and change into some TDC prison boxer shorts, stand up against the wall in the line, and the sergeant lady was going down the list with her clipboard, checking off everybody's name. Checking off this name. When she gets to me, she said, okay, what's your name? I said, Senrick Wilkerson. She flipped the pages several times. What's your name again? I said, Senrick Wilkerson. Stand over here. I ain't got time for this right now. So I stood on the side and watched her check off everybody's name. Okay?
All right.
So she comes back over to me. Now, she done checked off everybody's name, so she has no more names on there. Now, you would think that I'm standing over on the side, it'd be a name right there that she probably missed, okay? She said, give me your name one more time. Gave her my name. I took my armband off and said, here. She said, I'll be back. She came back. She said, how the hell you get to this unit? On that bus with them other guys, and I turned in my travel card. So that travel card is like an ID.
Right.
Okay, so you know who I am or who that person is. She said, I'm finna put your ass back on the bus to Dallas County. I'll be back. She went, came back. She said, do you have a federal conviction? No, ma'am. I have 8 illegal years. I have an 8 illegal year sentence. Okay? They called me out for chain. Had to give away my commissary. I gave you the travel card. Now, my name ain't on that list. I don't know what to tell you. She said, I called to see if you was on the wrong chain bus. She said, you are not listed to be in prison nowhere. I'm finna put your ass back on a van and send you back to Dallas County so they can deal with this. I'm like, that cool. Now I got him. Huh? They called on the radio. She went. I'm waiting good 15 minutes. But before that, I was telling her what happened because she was getting ready to try to get a van prepared to get me to go back to Dallas County. I told her I'm talking about all of this was almost 3 hours. Okay. I told her my story. What happened? She got that call on the radio, and this woman came back, and she put her arms around me. She hugged. She said, you want to know what these people told me? I said, no, what they tell you? She said, they told me to pencil you in. I said, pencil me in? She said, I listened to your story, and I thought it was just a bunch of mess. I thought you was just lying. She said, I believe you now. She hugged me and said, don't you let these bastards get away with this. You got to fight this because this is crazy. She said, I've been working for TDC for over 15 years. I have never in my life seen this before. Pencil you in. She continued to say that.
Wow. So something just occurred to me. Do you think that maybe they were trying to set you up to get you an escape charge?
There's no way I could escape from that. There's no way. If I wouldn't have never been raising hell, I would have did a lot of time. I'd have did all that time in the county, which is hard time.
True.
It's hard time in the county. And I used to hear that a lot, but experience it, now I know exactly what they mean. But let me back up. My illegal conviction date is December 17, 2010.
Okay.
On January the 5th, 2011, I was granted a new trial. They made up some more PR bond receipt claiming that I was released from county on February the 24th, 2011. Because for the appellate attorney, because I've had attorneys see this, it's like, what happened to the new trial? I didn't find out till 4 years later. They never told.
But wouldn't the county records show that you were still incarcerated?
When they mess up, when they do some evil, dirty stuff like this, they don't want to do that. They don't want to bring that to the light.
Because don't they do? I mean, I know in prison, because I told you I was a CO, so I know we have count times. Isn't county kind of the same thing?
Yeah, they count in county.
Okay, so if there are records showing that you were released on a PR bond, but yet the count sheet shows that you were in your cell, isn't that enough to prove that this is also fabricated?
It's fraud. Absolutely.
And why why didn't they release you?
Because they didn't want me out. They don't want to release me because they know I'm going to harm them. I know too much now. There's people can go to jail. These agents can go to jail. Some of the officers, these court officers, these court officials, they can go to jail for this stuff.
Maybe.
Matter of fact, the prosecutor that did this to me, that was behind this, they fired her. She don't work for Dallas County anymore. She's in another county in Wichita Falls, Texas.
If they did this to you, and obviously are good at getting away with it because you're still a convicted felon, even though you're on the outside, you're still convicted. You were still wrongfully convicted. So if they've done this to you and covered it up this much, how many others have they done this to?
I get this overturned, they gonna look at every case that prosecutor tried.
Well,
they gonna look at every case. I'm sorry, go ahead.
You would hope that they would look at every case, but do they really? Does anybody? Because I know here in Ohio, we're actually fighting a battle right now with something called absolute immunity, meaning that prosecutors are not held liable for mistakes that they make during trial and wrongful convictions. You can't go after the prosecutors. Nothing happens to them. They don't receive any disciplinary action whatsoever. They just go, oh, well, you made a mistake. Whoops. And they move on to the next case. So will they actually look at all the cases that prosecutor touched?
Oh, hell yeah. You got to push the issue because I think a week ago, maybe a few weeks ago here in Dallas County, a prosecutor he went to jail behind some stuff, behind some prosecutorial misconduct.
Good.
Yeah, it just got ugly here. And this was in Dallas County just a week ago. This got ugly.
So it seems to me like there needs to be like an attorney general investigation, and I'm not talking the attorney general of Texas. I'm talking federal attorney general coming in doing an investigation into the county at this point.
I'm gonna make sure because the lawyer that I'm talking to now is from practice in New York, but he's in Dallas now. Nice. And it's about to be some mess if he's legit, which I'm praying to God that he's 100% legit. But yes, when a prosecutor does some crooked mess and they get cited for prosecutorial misconduct, the state bar orders the courts, like a special prosecutor, to go and look at all the cases that this prosecutor has prosecuted.
Wow.
Now, whether they do anything about it, because we only see what we see in the news.
Right.
Who's going to go up to the courts and make sure that this is done every day? Unless it's you and it happens to you. Because I guarantee you, my name get cleared, I'm staying on it. I'm going to make sure that they get what's coming to their league.
Absolutely.
So I'm not going to stop.
So how has this affected you now that you are on the outside? What do you have to go through being convicted of the charges that you've been convicted of?
When I first got out, I was on the ankle monitor. I went on several interviews. And back when I was working regular job, if I got called in for an interview, I already know I'm going to get the job. It just... I was just like, so now I'm having to, have you ever been convicted? Now I got to check that box. Now I have to explain my conviction. I remember interviewing with 3 different ladies, and I told them my story, and they was like, I can tell right now that you didn't commit them crimes. You ain't no damn rape. I can tell. An innocent person is not going to speak like you do. This is what they tell. Not going to happen.
Right.
And then they tell me, let me see if I can push this through and get you hired. They can want me there on the job all day long, but human resources is not going to allow, because it goes by what's on pay,
So have you had to be on the registry?
Oh, I have to register every 90 days now. At first, I was registering once a year. So in 2020, a newspaper journalist contacted Destiny Austin because he wanted to do an article.
Okay.
He wanted to do an article on me. And he said, I got to get her side of the story. I'm like, so there's a way that she was found. So she called the DA's office, called the police, told them that I was harassing her, told them that I was trying to talk to her, and all this mess. Police came to my house knocking on, banging on my I opened up the door, let him in. I said, don't you ever in your life knock on my door like that. Don't come over here banging on my door like that. Well, you're not in trouble. I said, did you hear what I said? Oh, don't you ever knock on my door like that again. See, I have no respect for the police at all. And this is a part of the effect that I have with the police. Because I can tell you right now, Rebecca, if I get into it with police right now, he gonna have to pull his gun. Seriously, because I don't respect any of them. For them to do this to me, I don't respect none of them. That's why I stay every day. I stay prayed up and ask God, please don't let me have no run-ins with the police, because I ain't rap tight right now. He tells me, well, you're not in trouble, but do you know why I'm here? And I'm just looking at him. I say, you need to hear him, get the hell out of my apartment, man. For real, before I say something to anger you, and then if you get angry, you're not gonna want me to be angry back. He said, well, the girl said that are you trying to contact her? And I went off. I said, so this bitch can call y'all again and tell y'all that I'm doing this and y'all come. I'm off parole, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, so you ain't even on paper no more when they come and do this to you?
Yeah, I did a year on parole.
Oh, that's crazy. So what right did they have to come over to your house?
Because they said that because the girl called them. I said, you know what? Have a seat. I said, I want you to take notes in your mind, and I want you to go look this up. And I said, first of all, you tell the DA to kiss my ass, okay? And you tell your boss to do the same thing. So I told him what to look for and this, and that. And he's like, well, I didn't know it was like that. I said, I'm telling you it's like that, okay? So he called me a week later and said, man, I'm sorry, man. I hate to tell you that they want you to come down and register, so you can register every 90 days. He said, so can you come in today? Oh, no, he said, can you come in tomorrow? Because it falls on a Thursday, because I have to go on that Thursday, on that 90th day. He said, can you come in tomorrow and just do that so they own? I said, no, I can't come in tomorrow. I have obligations, bro. I got stuff I need to do. I can come in next Thursday. He said, okay, let me make a note so there won't be no issue. Make a note to this and da-da-da. I'm like, okay, do what you got to do, but I ain't went in. So what I did do is show up that next day, just because I wanted to see what they were going to say. So I showed up, and he was there. He came out and shook my hand. He said, hey, you made it? I said, yeah, I need to. So every 90 days, I have to go and register as a sex offender. When they even show me an arrest on these charges. But they got several different arrests. So yeah, that affects me every time. I mean, the night before I go in, I don't get no sleep.
I can imagine, because you're wondering, is this going to be the day that they try to trump up something else and I go back to jail?
It's just going in there.
Yep.
So,
being that you have to register every 90 days, has that affected where you were living or anything like that?
I live in a horrible neighborhood. My 17-year-old son lives, and he can't go outside and play. My son is gay, okay, and I love him to death. And I live among some real pedophiles, so I have to live in a crappy neighborhood.
College graduate, and this is how you have to live because somebody lied and the prosecutor trumped up charges.
So my lifestyle when I was a pimp, give me for pimping and pandering.
Right.
Give me for that. Give me for who I was. Because rape don't come with no pimping. It doesn't make sense, I've had women that would leave me because I never touched them sexually. And I'm talking about some beautiful girls, fine girls. I just did because once I chose that lifestyle, now the lifestyle chose me, but once I accepted it and got involved, I made it a point to be who I was. That's why I wrote a book about that, how I became.
Available on Amazon.
Available on Amazon. And it tells the story because, I was a really great basketball player. I ended up playing in Europe for a little bit, not long, because, just sometimes the road gets the best of you. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And you have to, and I'm talking about individually. I'm not talking about nobody else because everybody has their own story. Rebecca, you have your own story to how you became a correctional officer and how you left.
Right.
So I got involved and I became a pimp, okay? And to avoid having to answer a question on how and why I decided to get in that lifestyle, I wrote a book. And when people ask me that know me or whoever, and they know that, here it is, it's on Amazon. Get that book and read, and then get the other book. And it's just because I was speaking to a member of the Black Panther organization, and she was like, you got to put that down if you're trying to clear your name, because you don't want them. Okay, number one, I'm not in the lifestyle like that.
Right.
Number two, if I was, so because I would love to sit before a judge and tell them why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I'm not a rapist, okay? I am not a rapist. Where does that come with that lifestyle?
Exactly.
And it's okay for people to sell drugs and do drugs and be rehabilitated on drugs. So they say they rehabilitated, because they never are. But that's okay. But when it comes to that lifestyle, it's a problem, because they don't know how I operated. I made sure you couldn't smoke Rebecca, you couldn't smoke a cigarette and be a part of my situation. You couldn't smoke cigarettes. If you smoke, I've turned down a lot of girls that could have made me a lot of money, but they had a cigarette habit. That's a bad habit for me. Can't do it. Because if you go smoke cigarettes, eventually you're going to start doing drugs. That's the way I looked at it. Because society says every person that's in that lifestyle, a hooker, is on drugs. And that's not how it is. Back then when I was doing it, that's not how it was. And they always show the downside of it. They always show the bad side of it. But there's a good side to it. And this, like I said, this is a different lifestyle. This is different. And this is something that you make a choice to do.
Right. Just like somebody who goes and dances at a strip club. They made that choice.
Made that choice. But society still looks at them as a hooker, and they say you're in there doing drugs and you prostitute your body. Yeah, a lot of women, because if you're in a strip club, and this is me having knowledge of the lifestyle. If you're in a strip club and I've met girls that won't do anything sexually with a man for no money or whatever. That's not what they're in there for. They're in there trying to take care of their kids or pay their tuition in college. But I guarantee you this, Rebecca, everybody has a price.
True, very
Everybody
true.
has a price. Everybody has a price, And I've been told, well, if you wasn't a pimp, then maybe this wouldn't have happened to you. Like, for real, Bill Cosby wasn't no pimp.
Yeah, look, neither was R. Kelly.
R. Kelly was a horrible person that did that stuff. And you know what? R. Kelly married Aaliyah when she was, 15?
Mm-hmm.
There's something wrong with you, man.
Exactly.
I understand that he was molested and all that stuff and all that too, but see, that's a whole different atmosphere with that music industry, with P. Diddy and all them folks that's doing all that stuff. That's different from what we talk about.
Right.
Because when I speak on Bill Cosby back in the day, the early day, y'all waited this long for that man, and it came out from what I've been researching. Bill Cosby's house was on top of some oil, and they wanted his house, and he wasn't giving it up. So they gonna take that black man down. So they went and got all these people to say, now, if he was putting drugs in their drink, then that's wrong. But Bill Cosby got accused of rape, and he wasn't no pimp. Bill Cosby used to be everybody's daddy.
Yes, he was.
On TV. He was everybody's daddy. And they did that to him. Look what they did to Michael Jackson. I don't care what nobody say. Michael Jackson didn't do that to them kids.
No, he didn't.
Just to set up. Michael Jackson wasn't no pimp. Look what they did. Do you remember the football player? It was a coach from Michigan. He was in the athletic director. He got so many charges with little boy. He wasn't no pimp. I look at a lot of guys I've seen, and you've read, and you've heard, a lot of men go to prison wrongfully, do 15, 20, 30 years, and they come back, DNA cleared them because they didn't rape the girl. They wasn't no pimp.
Right.
So don't sit up there and tell me because I was a pimp that made these rape charges. Nah, it's ordinary people that was working at a damn grocery store. I seen the story, and I read it in the magazine because this man gave it to that was trying to help me while I was. This magazine showed this man, he was a general manager at a grocery store, at a supermarket, and he had a wife and he had kids, and they came to arrest this black man, and they arraigned him, charged him with sexual assault. The woman picked him out of a lineup and say he raped. He did some prison time, and the DNA cleared. She stood in the court during trial and said that man did, but DNA cleared him. And there's another story where a black man and this white woman picked him out of lineup. Police made sure they circled. It was him. Stood up in court in trial. That's him. He is the one that raped. And you know what? I think he did 9 years. Got his name cleared and exonerated. And he goes around and speaks. He does those little conferences. Guess who he travels and does?
Who?
The lady that accused him of rape.
Wow.
I read up on it. They say when you see them together, you would think they are a couple. And they probably are.
Wow.
They go to come together and talk about the sexual assault and all this, and sexual assault awareness and all this stuff. So I said all that to say this. He wasn't no pimp, but they accused him. So it doesn't matter what my social economic status is. They normally target black. And I'm not saying, and I'm not racist or anything like that. You know that they really look at us to say we did the worst thing that you can do to a person. You know, and and they go, it's every freaking day. See, I'm not afraid, but anybody, they can set me up right now. They can have somebody go say, yeah, say he raped, and then let him fight his way up out of that.
It's crazy.
No, it ain't.
And the sad part about it is it happens so often that there doesn't have to be any evidence. There's no statute of limitations on sexual assault, that's ridiculous, because what evidence do you have? It becomes her word against his or his word against hers. How is that evidence?
The statute here, I know here in Texas, 14 and under, there's no statute of limitation. 15 borderline, but 15 and up pretty much is you have 10 years to make that claim. That's why they have set it up. You have 10 years to make a claim. So that's too much power to give a woman, because a woman scorned is deadly and the most poisonous snake. Because if she want to get you, she gonna get you.
And get you the worst way possible.
And the worst way. and see, Rebecca, when I was in the lifestyle, I was known for, if you didn't work out for me, you got to go.
Right.
You have to go, because I don't want no unwanted bad situations or circumstance, because this is about choice. And if I choose to accept you in this lifestyle and you choose to be with me, then I have the choice to tell you to get the hell on, just like you have the choice to leave. And I would tell anybody, don't have to sneak away. You don't have to do nothing stupid. Just say, hey, I want to go. And you can go. Because when I tell you I don't want you here, I'm going to let them know.
Exactly. And that's the way it should be.
And that's the way it should be. And people look at this lifestyle so horribly. When everybody loves Snoop Doggy Dogg, everybody love 50 Cent. They wrote songs about pimping and hoeing, and they listen to it. They buy the music, and they holler, yeah, I'm a pimp, and they doing all this and this and that, and they see Snoop with all these women. Don't nobody say nothing. Don't nobody say nothing about that boy that had the Playboy Mansion.
Right.
What you think they doing? Do you remember they used to show? I don't know if you used to ever watch the thing on HBO for it was in Carson City. It's called that. It was out there in Nevada, Carson City, Nevada, and it's legal.
Oh, the chicken ranches or the chicken farms or whatever they are.
The bunny ranch.
Yeah.
And Rebecca, I used to have a young lady that worked out there. One of my girls worked out there at the bunny ranch, and I pulled her from it because I didn't like the setup. Okay, but to each his own. I've met Dennis Hall before. He passed away in 2016 or 2017. He passed away in 2017. But I watched Dennis Hall on talk shows. They would have this man on talk shows with these hookers on there with them, and it's okay because that's a white man.
Right.
They got these beautiful white women sitting up there saying, yes, that's what I do in there. Yes, and I on talk show in America, and they got this man, and it's okay for him. It's okay for him because he's a white man. He's a businessman. You know?
Right, exactly. But so are every other nationality that's doing the same thing.
You know what I mean? But they look at us horribly because they don't want us to be. It's just the way it is. It's not gonna. That shit ain't gonna never change. I don't care what anybody say. My mother is 88 years old, and try to imagine what she's seen growing up. And she has some stories. And my mother never once taught us. She never brought racism or prejudice in this home, in our house, not once. My mother used to date white. Hell, my mother dated one of my professors. He looked just like Sean Connery.
Well, she's got good taste.
She got good taste. Because Sean Connery, a good-looking bro. I hooked that up. My godparents are white. You know what I'm saying? So it ain't nothing racist about me. It's about the true fact, the way they want this. So even the prosecutor said this in her closing argument statement. She said, number one, she said, after all, he pulled a gun on her to show her that he had the power. And then she said, by him being in that lifestyle, having his adult place of business being a quote-unquote pimp, these crimes had to have happened. That statement alone should have been an automatic mistrial and an automatic reversal on an appeal.
Absolutely, because that's her opinion. It's not based on facts, it's based on her opinion.
Exactly. And she said that. And this is what, and the newspaper journalist had told me. He said, how are you going to get people in society if I do this article? Feel sorry for you when you was out there being a pimp. And I was like, why don't you entitle the biggest pimp in Texas this and this so they can read it? Because just because I'm a pimp don't make me no rapist.
Right.
I said, you don't want to do the article because you don't want to expose Dallas County for what they did. I said, I don't give a damn if I'm not looking for society to feel sympathetic towards me. I'm looking for them to know the truth about the injustice, because again, it doesn't matter what my socio-economic status is. I have a right to due process, and I have a right to a fair and impartial trial.
Absolutely.
The law. They broke the law. They violated codes of criminal proceeding in order to convict.
The 5th and the 14th Amendment as well.
Everything, So I'm like, what's the purpose of Miranda right when I never got them for these?
Right.
What's the purpose? And it's in the Texas Code of Criminal Procedure books. If you can have your case overturned if you never went before a magistrate judge and was arraigned by your. I read that in that gun book.
So they not only violated your constitutional rights, but they broke their own state laws as well.
And they call it the law of the land, because that's all over the country. Rebecca, you'll never find another case like mine. The only cases you'll find is somebody being wrongfully convicted for this, that. You will never find another case where an individual has been tried on charges without being arrested and without being arraigned.
No, I ain't never heard of no such thing before, so that's kind of what piqued my interest about your case was, what are you talking about? You were never arrested or arraigned. Come on, no. And then I read it and I was like, whoa, he was never arrested or arraigned. Oh my gosh, how did this happen?
Yeah. And that detective that wrote that letter to me, he's trying to say because I was arrested for the compelling prostitution charge, I didn't have to get arrested for the new charges.
Yes, you do. Anytime they add new charges, you have to be rearrested for them. You can't just tack on charges.
And just say, okay, you're going to go to trial and we're going to put it on with that? No, bro. It's called due process. You can't do that. If you put 100 charges on me, they have to come and arrest me and arraign me and read off all these charges.
Yep, every single one of them, one by one, has to be read. And you have to, they can arrest you one time for those 100 charges, but they can't arrest you and then 2 years later tack on more charges and say, oh, but we arrested you back here. No, it don't work that way. That's not how the system works. Well, I should say that's not how the system is supposed to work. So, well, I really do appreciate you talking with us today. And
yes, my pleasure.
Your story is definitely a wild one. It's like I said, if I wouldn't have read your book, I would not believe a word of it, because that doesn't happen here. But you are an example, and you are proof that it does. And these prosecutors and these judges and these crooked cops need to be held accountable for ruining people's lives and trumping up charges and wrongful convictions and everything. That's why there is a whole system in place. It's a checks and balances system. But the problem is they just don't care anymore. They feel they have all the power, and us little peons out here are powerless against them. But our voices are very powerful, and change is coming. If it's the last thing I do, change is coming. Please definitely keep us updated on any changes or anything that happens, because I would love to have you back on here.
I will. Here's what I found out, though. I found out that some of the officers that was involved in all this shaky mess were terminated. So I'll have some more information probably about that.
Perfect. That would be awesome.
Yeah, I'm never not gonna work on this. I'm hoping before I pass away, but it shouldn't be too much longer.
That sounds good. I want to take this time to again thank Senrick for taking time out of his day to have this conversation with us. And thank you for joining us for the second half of Senrick's powerful story. His journey is a heartbreaking but necessary reminder of the flaws in our justice system and the urgent need to reform them. If this episode moved you, we encourage you to take action. Visit our website, wickedlyjudged.com, to leave comments about this episode or any of our previous episodes. Submit a case to us for us to review, or even purchase merchandise. Every purchase helps us continue our mission to expose injustice and advocate for change. We also want to give a special mention to Senrick's book, Innocent Black Man. I personally have read it, and it is very eye-opening. It's available for purchase now on Amazon. It's a deeply personal and eye-opening account of his experiences and an essential read for anyone who wants to understand the human cost of wrongful convictions. A heartfelt thank you to JP Verse for providing the intro and outro music that sets the tone for every episode. and to Veteran Alliance for sponsoring this podcast and supporting our mission to fight for justice. Thank you for tuning in to Wickedly Judged. Don't forget to follow us on social media, share this episode with your friends and family, and join us next time as we continue to uncover the truth and advocate for change. Until then, stay informed, stay engaged, and stay fighting for justice, because nobody deserves to be wickedly judged.